her? No, how about him? Come on, guys, they just got here. They only been here a few weeks. They are part of the posse that was being murked in their country that they have colonized, and Trump brought them over here. But here's the T-ho. This dude has murked his wife. He rustled her up, choked her out, and now she's a useless white crayon somewhere in a box, maybe still in the freezer. Oh, he's been arrested. But here's the thing. White people are bringing crime to this country.
They're bringing
They're
crime.
rapists. They're drug mulers. They're just bad people. And your guy Trump said these people was going to make America great. They was going to contribute something to America. Well, fucking well. I make this shit up.
You ever hear stories so tragic and yet barely anyone is talking about it? That is exactly what I felt when I stumbled on this one. A South African woman came white town unalive in America by her own husband, and it's not just the tragedy that's painful, it's the silence around it. This is the South African woman unalived in America and why nobody is talking about it. I'm unpacking this heartbreak case, the silence from the media, and the uncomfortable truth about who gets to be a victim in today's world. Stick around because this story reveals way more than just one crime. It peels back layers of politics, race, immigration, and bias that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and I've got some things to say. First, I'll walk you through what happened, the actual case, then I'll show you why this story is way bigger than it looks on the surface, and finally I'll share my honest thoughts, from the media double standards to the politics behind the refugee story that brought Kim to the US in the first place.
Trigger warning. Remember those people not too long ago that came from South Africa because they made up a genocide and they were like seeking asylum, and some of them settled in... Yeah, well, one of them already killed his wife. I mean, this was on the 24th of May in Virginia. He strangled her to death. What's wild about it is my first thought was like, dang, maybe he did come over here to do that because maybe he'll get away with it. Maybe he'll get a pardon. Maybe. And not too long ago, that would have sounded ridiculous for me to say. But here we are. What if he does get a pardon? Like he'll claim like emotional distress or something. What if he does?
TikTok, you all sure do pick and choose what y'all gonna talk about. Now, when they were advocating for these South African refugees to come over to the United States because they were so-called being mistreated and so-called having their land taken and so-called being racist towards you, you all were in agreement with that. But now that they've come over to the United States, no one is talking about that one South African so-called refugee expat that murdered his wife. Why y'all so quiet now? See, y'all already knew that those people were not being persecuted over there. You all knew that they wanted an all-white town. There's videos all over TikTok with this lady saying that they want just a all-white town. And South Africa said, yeah, no, we're not playing that. So now all of a sudden they're being mistreated. And now this man that brought his little funky tail over here, I done murdered that lady. Where's the outrage?
Congratulations, Orange Pooping Pants Man. You officially have your first murder from yourself, white South African that you decided to give asylum to. Yes, brother man waited when he came here. His wife is a teacher, and he was once upon a time an accountant, not a farmer like they want them to be. Then turn around and suffocate his fucking wife. The name is Towner, Towne, and the wife was a South African teacher, and he was an accountant. Now I'm patiently waiting to see, is he gonna get a pardon? Because you brought his ass here. You told him this is how our country run. So now he killed his wife. Can we all figure out what the hell? Please let me know.
So y'all remember May 12th, right? The Afrikaners, the refugees, the ones that are being so badly persecuted from all the violent black people in Africa showed up here as refugees for a better life and a photo op with American flags, and all they want to do here was live peacefully, right? But then, like Biggie said, you're dead wrong, because one of them killed his wife in a fit of rage and domestic violence. Imagine that. This is 32-year-old Alexander, which is ironic because he's being held in Alexandria, Virginia. Right. Him and his wife just couldn't get along, got into an argument, got into a fight. So he got the little scratch on his face. Little scratch on his face. He took his wife's whole life. The whole thing. Done. Lights out. Over. You know, the Trump administration and Trump and the press secretary and all that, they're awfully quiet about this. You know, don't want to bring any more bad press considering, you know, the second wave just showed up yesterday. They want to protect the white South Afrikaners. They want to protect women and children. And they did extensive background checks. And, you know, everyone was good and safe and just, you know, wanted a peaceful life.
Kim Whitehouse was originally from Cape Town, South Africa. She was one of the 59 white South Africans, mostly Afrikaners, who were granted refugee status in the US during the Trump administration. Now, pause for a second. Refugee status, that's actually for people running from war, poverty, or real danger. But in this case, Trump pushed a controversial idea that white South Africans were facing genocide, that they were being unalive just for being white. But let's not lose the thread. Kim resettled in the US, probably hoping for safety, peace, a new start, and then her husband, an American man, strangled her to death in a domestic dispute. Alexander Town, that's his name, has been charged with second-degree murder, no bail, no excuses, and just like that, she's gone. It's horrific, it's very sad, and in fact enraging. So now I'm asking why this is not making headlines. Why isn't the media all over it? Let's be real. If you had been unalived in South Africa by a black man, or if it fit that white persecution narrative, I'm almost certain it would have blown up on Fox News, in Reddit thread, even on WhatsApp groups. But because she was unalived in the US by her white American husband, suddenly it's not newsworthy. I dug into it. The only real coverage is local news and a few South African outlets. That's it. You are not seeing CNN, BBC, or any of the major platforms talking about it. And to me, that silence screams. It's like once she stopped being useful to a political narrative, her death just doesn't matter anymore. And this is where I get really uncomfortable. You know, Trump used the idea of white genocide in South Africa to justify bringing Afrikaners to the US as refugees, fast-tracking them while at the same time blocking black and brown refugees from places like Syria, Haiti, and Central America. You know, these Afrikaners, by the way, are not some oppressed or poor group in South Africa. They are still one of the most privileged communities economically. So this whole refugee program wasn't about saving lives, but rather it was political, it was racial, and let's not pretend otherwise. And someone like Kim, who is tied to the program, suddenly gets unalive violently, not in Africa, but in the United States. The media doesn't know how to handle because her death doesn't feel the white victim in our story. It actually pokes holes in it. If you are still watching, do me a favor and subscribe. These are the kind of stories that get buried, and I want us to be at the space where we can unpack them honestly, even when they are tough. When I think about Kim, I don't see politics. I see a woman who probably thought she was escaping danger only to find it in the very place she came for safety. And I ask myself, how many women, immigrants or not, face abuse behind closed doors only to be forgotten? There's also this question burning very deep in me. Do we only care about victims when their stories serve a certain agenda? Because if that's true, and it sure feels like it, then we've got a very serious problem. Media chooses what to spotlight, and often it favors drama over truth, race over reality, and politics over people. When white South Africans are victims of crime in South Africa, especially at the hands of black people, it becomes global news. But when they are victims of domestic violence in America by white Americans, suddenly it's not important. And this is very hypocritical, very biased and selective storytelling.
I don't think that she is with us anymore. Those were the chilling words that Alexandra Town said to 911 operators as he stood over the dead body of his wife. A wife who he claimed he loved. a wife who he had beaten, strangled, and killed while their child was in the next room. Hi everyone, my name is Carrie and I'm an ordinary South African woman, but I'm an ordinary South African woman who is grateful against this violence that is happening against our women. And today I want to talk about the case of Kim White. Now, Kim White was a beautiful 32-year-old South African who was born in Cape Town. And when she grew up, she always wanted to help people. And that's why she decided to become a teacher, to mold young minds. So when the opportunity came for Kim to work in Dubai, she leapt at it. And she had an amazing time in Dubai. It's an amazing city. And she drank in all what Dubai had to offer. But it was in Dubai where she would cross paths with a dashing young American soldier with an easy smile and a good sense of humor. And his name was Alexandra Town. Now, Kim and Alexandra would fall in love quickly and they would have a whirlwind romance. And Kim soon found out that she was expecting his baby. And we all know that it's not okay to have a baby out of wedlock in Dubai. So Kim returned to South Africa and she and Alexandra wanted to be a family. So they got married in December 2021. But all was not good. You see, Alexandra had a problem. And his problem was that he hated women. And behind closed doors, he would beat Kim. Now, we know that her family knew what was going on, and they often said to her, "Are you sure this is the type of man that you want to be with?" But Kim was in love with him. And you know what? After every time, he would come and apologize, and he would have the most sincerest apologies. And he would tell her that, "Kim, you are the woman who can change me. You are the woman who can make me a better man." And Kim believed him because she wanted to believe him, because she loved him. So Alexandra would go on back to the US to secure a visa. We've all watched 90 Day Fiance. We know how it works. A visa for Kim and their new child. And Kim would soon follow him. And by September 2023, Kim had followed him to the US, where he was staying in military barracks. So Kim just wanted to have an ordinary white picket fence type of life. And she hoped that she would get that when she moved in with Alexandra in America, and they would be the lovely, beautiful young family that they were. But guys, just 2 months after Kim joined Alexandra in America, she took a protective order out against him. You know why? Because woman hater Alexandra was beating her. Oftentimes she would call her aunt, and her aunt would hear Kim crying where she had locked herself in a bathroom or a bedroom, and the aunt would hear Alexandra pounding on the door trying to get to her as the couple argued. Now, guys, Kim tried to do the right thing. She tried to leave, but it's not that easy. The stats say that it takes on average 7 or 8 times for a woman to leave their abuser. And let's just think about this. Kim has moved to a new country. She has an aunt in Ohio, but that's quite a distance away from Virginia, where Kim was. And Kim has a young child. This guy was dependent on her being in America. We all know how 90 Day Fiance works. So, guys, let's just think about that power dynamic. And also, Kim and Alexander had a trauma bond. And a trauma bond is one of the most difficult bonds that you can break because of how it forms. So what happens is that you fight, and then your body reacts a certain way, and then you make up, and then the body releases certain hormones and brain chemicals to the point where it becomes almost an addictive process. Now, ladies, if we're going to go for anyone in the comments. Let's go for woman hater Alexander, because Kim was just trying to do what she thought was the right thing. And Kim moved out and lived with her aunt for a while. And then she often spoke to her aunt about, she felt like a failure. She had a lot of guilt. She felt like a failure because her marriage wasn't working. She felt bad because her child didn't have a father. So when Alexander came begging one last time, promising that he was a changed man, that Kim was the person that mattered the most to him in life, that he would do anything for her, that he probably promised he'd go to therapy, he'd do anything to get her back. She loved him, and she wanted to believe what he said was true. So Kim moved back in with him, in a rented house in Chantilly, Virginia, where Kim would die. And she would die by being strangled. Now guys, this is not the movies. You don't just grab someone by their throat and they die instantly. It takes minutes to strangle someone to death. Minutes. This man, this woman-hating man, had so much anger for Kim that he held his hands to her throat for minutes while he watched the blood vessels pop in her eyes and the life go out of them. Guys, I'm going to be making a TikTok. Follow me. I'm going to be making a TikTok every day until something is done about this. Because you know what? I'm not going to run out of women. And by the time you go to bed at night, and by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, another one of our sisters is going to be killed by the man that she shares her bed with. We lose one of our sisters every 7 hours in South Africa.
It hasn't even been 30 days, and we're learning that one of the white South Africans has his wife here in America. I'm going to get the details, bring it back to you, but they haven't been here for 30 days and he already, his wife, on American soil. I'm not laughing because I'm laughing because we were told that they were being persecuted in South Africa. We were told that they are upstanding, blah, 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 blah. American authorities had to arrest him.
Kim's story is very tragic, we can't lie about it, but the silence around her being UnAlive is what really hurts me. And this reminds us that not all lives are treated the same, not by the media, not by the system, and sometimes not even by the communities we come from. And my question to you is this: when a story doesn't fit the narrative, do we just bury it, or do we dare to talk about it anyway? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I want to hear your thoughts, and let's have that conversation. Until next time, stay aware and always remember to stay human.